Hello and welcome aboard Narrowboat Gentian. It is a glorious winter's day. The sun is bright in the sky, just over there, right in my eyes in fact. There's quite a lot of condensation on the windows, for 'twas a cold night and I slept aboard. People keep telling me I should get one of those Karcher window vacs to clean the windows, but I don't really want one of those. I don't have a problem with the condensation on the glass. It's not causing a problem. It's on the woodwork. You want to wipe it up, and for that you can't get those window vacs in. You need a good set of paper towels, so I have mopped that down already. Anyway, I digress. That's not what the purpose of this video was about. It is, can you believe it, a year since I bought this narrowboat, and I thought, given that it is pretty chilly out, not really cruising weather, I might just do a sit down, ponder some reflections, thinking about things I like and, dare I say, dislike about my tiny narrowboat. So I've made a list. I think we'll start with what is probably the biggest negative, bearing in mind that I have slept aboard and therefore this is preying on my mind, for 'tis the bed situation. It's not good. You see, you have these two saloon seats facing each other, which are for just sitting on during the daytime, but you can obviously sleep on them as a single bed at night. However, if, like me, you're 5'10", your feet have to go into that little hole there, which means your head is here, because you don't really want your head in the little hole. And the trouble with that is that that's pointing towards the back of the boat. And as the back of a narrowboat is always lower than the front, it's just that's the heaviest part, it means that as you lie here, the blood is now rushing to your head, and it just feels wrong. You want to be the other way round, but that means putting your head in the funny little locker bit, and that'd be like being in a coffin. That's just weird. So, really, lying here like this as a single bed is not a practical option. You need to make the bed up into a double. So I'll do that and show you the problem with that. And there is the made up bed, which, as you can see, I've put both a spongy memory foam mattress topper, followed by an additional single duvet cover, just as a bit of extra padding, and then the main duvet itself, which is a double, and I wrap over it around myself. So it's very warm, but it is not comfortable, despite all the layers of duvet. I mean, look here, I've got that duvet, that memory topper, and then the actual cushions themselves from the boat, and it's still not terribly comfortable. But there is a bigger problem, which is to do with being 5'10". You see, up here near the bow, the edges of the boat just start to curve in a little bit, so the front end of the bed there is definitely too narrow for me to lie across. So I need to be back here. This is the only bit where I am just about able to fit in, but it's still not good. You see, there are my feet, which are just fitting under the gunnels and touching the edge, and the edge is cold at night, so you want something wrapped around there, a bit of extra blanket. That's a side issue. And then back out here we have my head again, just about fitting here, but I can feel my hair touching where the gunnels come in, and you just think you're going to whack your head. So what I end up doing, even subconsciously, is just scrunching myself up while I'm in bed. So I'm lying here, on my side usually, and I end up with my knees bent and my head here, because I'm trying not to hit this. So I can't really stretch out for a start. And I've got the same problem with that being the back of the boat. There is a tilt, and I feel that I'm falling that way, which is ever so slightly disturbing. So I will roll over. And this is better, because I feel less like I'm rolling that way now. I don't know why that should be, but I do feel better like that. But either way, this slightly scrunched up, which is fine for a bit, but you want to stretch out occasionally, and then my feet end up hitting the side here, or my head hits the side here, and then you think, okay, well, David, lie diagonally. And funnily enough, I do end up waking up often kind of like this. Just in the night I've moved myself round like that. But whatever it is, I'm just not comfortable. I'm waking up with backache, So it's a problem. And what's ever so slightly annoying is that while I was looking round at boats, I did see some 29 or possibly 30-foot sea otters. They made quite a lot of those. And I dismissed them as being, well, not really that much different to this one, because the layout is very, very similar, except that at the front, instead of two saloon seats opposite each other, they have a little L-shaped, like the old dinette I had in Rayland, my old boat. So an L-shaped thing here, which turns into an inline, full-length bed. So you're actually facing lying in the direction of the boat rather than across, and it is, I believe, the proper length. Those 3-4 extra feet on those boats give them not only a bigger well deck but a bigger sleeping area, and although you still have the faff of making it up, which actually I'm not too bothered about, it only takes a few seconds, but it would mean I could lie straight in what is in effect a normal size bed. And I think with hindsight, having the 26-footer was a mistake. I think I should have gone for a 29 or 30-foot sea otter with that slightly different saloon arrangement. And there's one next door to me. I've peered in through the window and I think I like it. With that first moan out of the way, let's counter it with something positive, which immediately contradicts what I just said. Specifically, that the thing I want to be positive about is the tiny size of this boat. 26 feet is minute. I mean, just look at this thing. I can moor it pretty much anywhere. If I turn up somewhere and I can't squeeze this into a mooring slot, I shouldn't have a boat. Also, of course, being shorter means it costs less in licence fees, and if it needed blacking, it would cost less in blacking fees as well, but because it's aluminium it doesn't, but that's beside the point. Small is in some ways beautiful. I also don't need to cruise along the canal until I get to a turning point. I can literally turn this pretty much anywhere, on the spot, so no hanging around waiting for a winding hole, and that is a big plus. Worrying about would I be able to find somewhere to moor, because if all the popular spaces were taken and as the day came towards its end, we always used to be a little bit of a concern, but it's so tiny I'm pretty much guaranteed I'll be able to squeeze in somewhere. So the small size is both a blessing and a curse. And I'm going to stick with the exterior for the next positive thing about the boat, which I just touched on really, and that is the aluminium construction. Unlike most narrowboats, which are made of steel, this does not rust. It can sit in that water as long as it likes, unpainted, raw metal touching the water, and it's not a problem. And that of course means that, apart from their unsightliness, little chips and scratches in the paintwork are not an issue either. It's just going to sit there, bare metal, couldn't care less. Yes, I know these chips are not pretty, but it's on the to-do list and it doesn't matter when I get round to doing them. If that was a steel narrowboat, they'd be rusting, I'd be out here with the sandpaper and the cure rust and the primer and everything else every time I got a chip. Chips are inevitable on narrowboats, but it's such a weight off your mind not having to worry about them on this one. The only odd thing, which perhaps someone more versed in aluminium can tell me about, is that you do get what looks like raised rust bubbles, but it obviously isn't rust bubbles. And I don't know if the camera is even picking that up, but it's like the paint has come up with rust underneath it. But it isn't rusting because it's aluminium. So what is that all about? Why is the paint lifting up like that? Having done two positives in quick succession, let's go back to a negative. It's only a small one. And it is this throttle lever. I mentioned this on a fairly recent video. This is so low down here that when I'm standing, I can't really reach it with my left hand. I have to bend down to reach this thing. It needs a much, much, much taller lever on it. Look at it all the way down there. I know the boat's small, it doesn't mean the people driving it are. This is my hand as I'm standing up. There's the throttle control. I'm constantly having to bend the knees. It's like I'm going skiing or something mad. Oh, I think I'll adjust the throttle. Skiing, throttle adjusted, stand up again. Not good for the knees. Of course, there is a downside to aluminium in that it is softer than steel, so if you bang into anything, another boat or the bank or whatever, you are more likely to get a dent in the aluminium. That is a drawback. Steel narrowboats are tougher. But there are plenty of fiberglass craft on the canals, and they are a lot less tough than aluminium. So all in all, it's probably a good compromise. Let's give a thumbs up to aluminium, I think. I've come back into the warm for the next positive, and it's quite hard to illustrate, but Sea Otter really did seem to build the boats pretty well. There are some narrowboats, even fairly modern ones, where when you poke about and you look underneath the shiny surfaces, you see that corners have been cut and things have been put together quite shoddily, and clearly the manufacturers really didn't take a lot of care, and that applies to boats of all ages. But Sea Otter seemed to care. As far as I can tell, this thing's been very well put together, thoughtfully put together, and put together with a bit of love and care. So you can access things like the pumps, and you can get to the pipework, and they've got little valves to turn off the water and things. I know it's trivial, but these little attentions to detail in the building, I mean, the fact that this boat is 24 years old, and apart from a little bit of water staining here and there and a few holes in the woodwork where people have added things, you would literally think this had just left the factory. Really well put together. So big thumbs up for Sea Otter. And how is it they went out of business? Yes, I know the aluminium boats were a lot more expensive than steel ones, and I'm told that Sea Otter was so obliging to customers, they would often just make changes and adaptations as customers wanted and not really charge them what it cost them. It's a great shame. The company, I think, went out of business about 3 or 4 times before finally disappearing in around 2014, 2015, something like that. I'm a little bit hazy, but they did build a really good boat, so thumbs up to them for that. Being back inside and huddled around my little electric oil-filled radiator here brings me on to another little negative of the boat, and that is the heating. Now, on Rayland, my old narrowboat, I had not only radiators with water inside them fed by a diesel boiler thing, and of course the multi-fuel burner, the log burner, which I could put coal or logs into. And I hated the ash and the dirt of that log burner, but by heck, it worked really well. People say, you cold on narrowboats in winter? No, you've normally got the windows and doors open because the log burner chucks out so much heat it can absolutely get roaringly toasty in there. Well, there is no log burner in here, nor even a diesel equivalent of a log burner. What I have got is an LPG powered hot air blower, which, to be fair, does work. When it's on, it warms the boat up quite well, but it's noisy because it's blowing the hot air, and it uses a lot of LPG. Goes through, I think on the high setting, which is really what you want, 0.2 of a litre of LPG per hour, and in a cylinder of 13 kilograms, oh right, I can't do the maths, but it's not a lot, only a certain number of hours, and you've used up all your gas, compared to, for example, the little diesel heaters like the one I've got in my camper van, which absolutely sips diesel and equally chucks out a lot of good hot air. So in an ideal world, I'd have one of those reflex or bubble diesel stoves in the corner that look like a log burner, but they're not a log burner, but they sit there burning diesel and just keeping you toasted. There's no space for it here. Okay, fair enough. So I may have to swap out the LPG heater for a diesel heater that's using the same pipework to blow hot air around, and in the meantime I'm sitting huddled around this tiny little heater. Actually it's too small, it's 500 watts, and even in a space this small it's not quite enough, but it does keep your hands toasty, and if you sit with your legs over it, it keeps your legs toasty. And of course, being mains operated, I can only run this when I'm actually here at the marina plugged into shore power. There's no way the battery on the boat would run this. So heating is a problem. When it's all running, it does get toasty and warm, but what you want is a sort of continuous, quiet little diesel stove in the corner, and I don't really think there's any way I can do that. I'm going to throw in a second negative here, which is relevant to that, namely that for some reason Sea Otter only used polystyrene sheets to insulate their boats instead of the much more modern and better spray foam. I guess it was a cost thing. I don't know why they didn't spray foam them. It's presumably a lot easier just whack up some polystyrene, but it's not as good an insulator as the spray foam. So I get the sense that even when the heat is running, you feel it vanishing out of the boat. What I might have to do, and this will be very expensive, is swap the windows for double glazed ones, because I bet a lot of the heat is disappearing straight out of these single glazed windows. They're not cheap, but it might be worth upgrading at least the big ones, even if not the porthole windows, to some double glazed units. And we'll see what difference that makes, but that is going to cost a fair chunk of money. So the heating situation is not ideal. My final positive aspect of this boat is just how they managed to pack quite so much, so ingeniously, into such a small space. Remember, this is a 26-foot boat, including the back deck and the well deck. And within that, you've got a comfortable saloon area, which turns into a large and uncomfortable bed. You've got a really pretty decently substantial kitchen. All right, galley. So you've got storage space there and a fridge, worktops above, and on that side you've got the sink. I mean, look at the size of this, 4-burner hob and a grill and an oven and cupboards. That's a heck of a galley for a tiny, tiny boat. And then you just turn around and you've got the dinette area for eating, which converts to double bunks if you've got children staying aboard. So it is designed for 2 adults, 2 children. You've got storage underneath those seats again. You've got a little bit of storage down there and a dining table stuck in there if you want to eat up between the saloon seats. And then a full shower and toilet in there as well. And it's not tiny. You don't feel shortchanged in here. Yes, the shower curtain tries to grip you as you're trying to shower, but you've got a reasonable amount of space. Oh, and there is storage underneath that step there, as well as arguably somewhere to put your coats in the electrics cupboard. There is a hanging rail there. I don't really like the idea of damp coats in anything that's got electrics in it, but you can use this for storage. And let's not forget the storage underneath those saloon seats, which I've got the duvets and pillows and things in. Plus there is a pretty hefty water tank given the size of the boat, so you could actually motor this thing around without needing to refill for several days, I would suspect. I don't actually know how big it is, do I? I think it says it in one of the manuals that was left by the original owners, but it's fairly decent sized water tank. And high level shelving on either side of the galley where you can store food as well. Not to mention nice little touches like the hatch for ventilation. On a sunny day you want that. It turns into a little oven in here. Open that up, it's glorious. So yes, it's a big positive thumbs up to the ingenuity of Sea Otter for the way they have designed this boat. It is brilliant. And that is my summary of the plus points and negative points of this little 26-foot 2001 Sea Otter. I am curious to know in the comments what you think are the best and maybe the worst aspects of this little boat, or if there are any bits that you'd like to know about that I haven't touched on, either in today's video or the original boat tour I did. Any questions, drop them down there and I will do my best to answer. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.